Today I'm gonna show you how we used Realm database and Realm mobile platform in one of our projects, and I'm gonna show it from a couple points of view as iOS developer. So that was most of it was done by me, and most slides are regarding iOS part. Also, there was some setup on the backend part on the server, and because some requirements needed data preview, I also created some kind of website presenting data. And basically, application was for our marketing team because we attend quite a lot of events, and we have stands there, like you can see here. And girls from marketing wanted to have some kind of application to collect attendees data and then somehow handle it. We mostly use it for reminding them that they can show up on the stand for the contest to resolve. So we also needed to somehow enable contests, some kind of questions within the application. Also, girls wanted some easy data preview. Also, because on some events, network connection is really poor, or sometimes network is overloaded. So we needed to get it working, even if there is no network or it's very poor. And also, the last requirement was to update the data within the application, so I don't have to recompile it every time for each event, and so girls could do it by themselves. And one of the biggest requirements was that it has to be done really quickly. Yeah, we all love deadlines. Yeah, so for that reason, I decided to go with Realm. I heard about that database quite a long time ago, like 3 years, and for that time I haven't had proper use case for it. But this kind of application seemed to be like perfect match, and I decided to go with it. It's offline first, so so it fulfilled one of my requirements, and it also solves most of the synchronization stuff, so I wouldn't have to worry about that. And it syncs as little as possible. So basically, it syncs just those parts that actually changed. So it doesn't require much bandwidth. So it could work even on poor network conditions. And it offers, as the case for iOS, for JavaScript, like for Node.js and React Natives. And also they offer SDKs for Android, for Java, and for Xamarin. Yeah, and it's extremely easy to start development. Basically, what you need is some kind of data model definition. Here you can see a simplified version of what I had within my application. So it's attendee, in that case, with just the first name. You create object of that kind, set it up, and then you instantiate a Realm database. In that case, it's a local instance. Data will be stored on the device, and you write to the database in the right transaction, and that's all you need to start working with it. Later on, you can, if you decide to start syncing it to some backend, you can change that configuration. I'm gonna show it later on. And to start synchronizing, you need to know where to store it, and you need yeah, you have to authorize yourself. What I did was just to create one user, and I used the simplest possible way to do it. So just username and password, and that was all what I needed. And yeah, I set up the backend. That's on the later slides. And here I had some issues because I didn't pay too much attention to the docs. Authorization is done over HTTPS, and actual data synchronization is done over custom Realm protocol. In that case, it's Realm, and they also have Realm S, which is more secure. Yeah. At the beginning, you need to start synchronization. You need to log your user to the Realm object server using previously set up, previously created URL, and then you check for errors, and if there is any, like you were not able to connect to the object, to the object server, so you can use previously logged in user, and Realm takes care of checking network connections. If there is network available, it will start synchronizing data by itself. So that solves quite a lot of issues that you may have during development. But it's, and yeah, when you are successfully logged in, you can create a sync configuration with that user and user and Realm path. So you could start actually use Realm database. And here I can, when I successfully log in, I start pulling data. Basically, in my case, it was checking if there was new terms and conditions for the event, new questions for the contest, and maybe some other rules I needed, like how long attendees have to answer all the questions for the contest, and some more bits and pieces. Usually, it doesn't take that much time. Like most of the times, it was just like less than a second to set it all up, and so people could start using the applications. Yeah. So what I have, this actually actual data models I have within the applications. Within the application, it's attendee. It's very simple. You have first name, last name, email, and some relations to other models like programming languages or taking surveys. In that case, it's answered questions for the contest. Programming languages is for our purposes. They can opt in to fill it in, but that's not mandatory. Basically, it's what they know, and sometimes we contact them for job offers, but that's it. And here you can see relationship one-to-many, and it's yeah, the same concept as you can see in any other database systems. Taken survey looks like this. I count time for it because sometimes our contests were time-based, so I needed something for it. Answered questions and reverse relation to attendees. Some of you that are familiar with Core Data Framework might remember that from there, because it's called inverse relationship. It allows you to have a link between objects from both ends. Usually that's very helpful. Realm also offers you Mac application that allows you to preview data on your Mac. You connect the same way as you do in your application. You just enter your username, password, and choose the data, and you enter the URL where data are stored. And on the backend, you don't have to type in all the models like you would do in standard database systems. You don't enter create table, blah, 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 blah. This is done for you when you start, when the realm, the database is created on the backend part, and you start putting data there. You can, with that Mac application that's provided for you, you can preview data and check relations between objects. Relations are clickable, so you can see what users actually entered there. The rest of the iOS part is UI mostly. So people get a clean screen saying what's ahead of them and how much time they have, how many questions there is, and what kind of contest this is. So for most of the times it's time-based, and to populate that screen you just need to pull data from the realm. So you enter what kind of objects you are looking for. In this case it's rules. This is Swift example, by the way. And you filter it by, in this case, by ID, but you can do it by whatever property there is. And I'm just taking the first one because there is just one. And ID in this case is primary key. That's also built in Realm, so you don't create object with the same IDs. You just have to say which one, which property of the object is primary key. It could be one or more. It depends entirely on you. So I just pull the data and fill the label in. And next part was question. It consists of some introduction. Sometimes there was code sample, and sometimes not, and some answers to choose from. It's one of them is right. I believe this is from DevOps conference, and I think our Java guys picked quite hard questions for this. Out of, I don't know how many, but I think there was like 2 or 3 guys with all correct answers. And yeah, and to present, this is simplified version of what I have within the application. To present the question, just again pull the data and link it to the UI, just filling in the labels and looping through possible answers. And last part was a simple personal form where people were entering first name, last name, email, and if they wanted known technologies or known programming languages. After that, I do some kind of form validation. It's extremely simple. I just check if there is anything in the 3 required fields, and I do basic email validation. I mean really basic. I just check if there is @ sign, because yeah, what it doesn't make much sense to do some hardcore here. And in this place, I create attendee object. So if somebody dropped during filled in during the process, I don't have any garbage in the database. I create the object here, so I have all the necessary fields I needed, and if everything is alright, I save it and show the last screen. And if there was some kind of error, and in this case it was missing field, then I show some kind of information to the person who tried to fill the form. On the backend part, I had to install Realm Object Server. Basically, I followed the instructions from the docs, and to start using Realm Object Server, I started Ubuntu instance on Amazon Cloud, ran a couple commands on the command line, and changed 2 or 3 lines in default configuration, and that was pretty much it. I'm not really admin guy, and that's not what I do on a daily basis. But it was extremely easy just to set it up and have it up and running. I also had to do some kind of setup of the service, so it started when the actual instance was restarted or put to sleep. And I also needed to fulfill app transport security requirements, because all communications with the API on iOS has to be done over HTTPS. So I had to somehow set up a secure connection on the backend part, and one of my colleagues suggested Caddy server because, again, I'm not admin guy, and it was very easy to use. It was like 2 or 3 command lines, commands, and the certificate was set up and ready to use. And I didn't want to bypass ATS app transport security settings, because that's not very wise. Last but not least, data preview. Firstly, I thought I would use server-side Swift because it's possible. You can run Swift apps on Linux, and I thought that I could save some time for myself, reuse the same data models, maybe some other code, so I don't have to write again the same stuff. But Realm doesn't work on Linux yet because the core functionality of Realm highly depends on Objective-C runtime integration of on Apple platforms, and therefore it's not that easy to rewrite the core functionality in Swift, because Swift doesn't offer such functionalities. There are missing bits, and as far as I know, they are looking into Swift development, and there is also GitHub ticket that's almost 2 years old now, like a year and a half, like February 2016, so year and a half, and it's not dead. It's still open. I checked that before this morning, and they are responding to it actively. Like last couple weeks, there's last comment from Realm team, and I think Nicola from Realm is at the conference, so probably he could tell you a bit more. And because Realm doesn't work on Linux, I decided to go with JavaScript. And because they offer SDK for Node.js and for React Native, but React Node.js was the way to go for me, and that was kind of an issue for me because I don't know Node.js, and last time I did something in JavaScript was back in time when JavaScript was used for changing images on buttons. That's quite a long time ago. Yeah, but it's still the same language, so I decided to go with that. And for data preview, I needed to show the contest results, so girls knew who actually won. And they also wanted to quickly check how many attendees went through our stand. Sometimes it was just like 50 people, or 100. Sometimes it was much more. And they also wanted to export attendees data, including the emails, to CSV. So, for example, they can invite them again to our stand when the contest winner was picked. And yeah, mostly for this. And my approach was to bother my colleagues at work because we have some front-end guys, and I thought they might be useful, and they were. And I had, I think, 6 dependencies in Node.js package.json file, but when you run Node install, it translates to quite a bit more. But anyway, it worked pretty well. And because I had to somehow rewrite data models, so I had to translate my code from Swift to JavaScript. But as you can see, they are not that much different. Basically, just language differences, and but for most part, they look pretty much the same. So as you can see, attendee in JavaScript is pretty much the same as in Swift, and the same goes for taken survey. Maybe it's a bit less in JavaScript because on the front-end part, we actually didn't use the same amount of information, but even if the object is slightly less defined, it still works. And UI was not very pretty, but because of the time pressure, we just used Bootstrap, and that was enough for that kind of stuff. It's used only internally. And here you can see DevOps survey example. And as I said, questions were pretty hard, so I had to add some functionality to see if, for example, there was somebody with 3 correct answers or something like this. Because during the conference, we were quite afraid that there will be nobody with all the correct answers. And yeah, as you could see, this guy was not very lucky with picking his answers. Anyway, we used that application on a couple events, like on Geekon front-end, Front-Trend and DevOps JS Poland. As you can see, those events are varying in size, and in all of them, there were no issues collecting the data, synchronizing them over the available networks, updating terms and conditions. I don't remember which one were very close to each other, but there was just 1 day gap between one of those. And so we had to update terms and conditions quickly, questions, and as far as I remember, girls from marketing didn't come after the first one back to the office, so they had to do it by themselves. We have custom built stands with iPads on both sides, so people could enter the data and answer the questions and what they need. And there's, I think there is third iPad that's just on the stand if that's needed. And when they fill everything in, usually they are invited to pick up the T-shirt, and yeah, that's it. And there was also one extra app, because on the very first event, some people were expected to prepare the questions, but they didn't. So we had to improvise, and there was just one question. I think it was how many employees Codewise has, and girls from the stand usually suggested the right one. And so I created a very simple app with just basically one label, and that label shows at the beginning just a number from the list, and when the winner was picked, it changed to the actual name, and Marta from our team shows that to the people, so that person could come to us and pick the prize. And that's it from me. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. I have a question regarding mutability of the models. I'm not aware, or I don't know how Realm works in terms of when you retrieve data from the database and you have that object that you create. Can you just pass it around threads, use it in UI, or even if somewhere else you would mutate it and add fields? How does it work?
Yeah, basically, you usually go, you create, on one of the slides there was a queue, I was using it, and that's the queue I pulled the data from. As far as I know, you could safely write to the database on any thread, but you have to, because the way iOS works, usually you have to switch, somehow send it to the main thread, so you could relate it to the UI elements like labels or whatever you have. And basically it's thread safe, but you have to bear it in mind that you pull it on one thread and you have update UI on the main one. Does that answer your question? Thanks.
Do you have any more questions? So thank you, Marcin, for the presentation.